We were so arrogant as a liberation movement towards our people, especially the people like us who are always a critical voice inside the movement as a wake-up call. Tina, as a criticize the movement, napati say criticize the COSATU, hey, president, COSATU ya criticize okakhula ekhaya kwaNehawu. And we're doing that thing out of love. We're not doing that thing out of opportunism. We're not doing that thing because we want to gain political points. We're doing that thing because we want to correct. Which is something, comrades, that we must correct now. When we were campaigning, we were saying, no, leadership, when we're done, we don't want a government of, a coalition government. It's a terrain we are not familiar with. We can't struggle in the terrain of coalition. Let's win decisive, but when we have won, we must come back and correct the following things about ourselves. We said so. It cannot be that, as Comrade Solozo usually come, but that we've suffered a setback. The political correct language is that we have suffered a political setback and as an NDR. It can't be that we have suffered that setback. We think we've got no responsibility to correct the things that we were supposed to correct, even if we have won elections. Because otherwise, if we don't learn from the mistake, we will never reclaim this thing. We'll never reclaim this thing if we don't learn and correct. For instance, yini lento isatshwayo kulento ibizwa kuba yi reconfiguration of the alliance. Kusabwani ku reconfiguration of the alliance. What is it that is so? People said, no, we don't want to co-govern with the alliance, but they are governing with the DA. But they don't want to govern with us. But they are so free to govern with Freedom Front Plus. They don't want to co-govern with their own. What did that thing help for refusing to unite and broaden and strengthen the people's camp in order for you to continue the transformation agenda, rather than having to be disrupted and be forced to really co-govern? Abengafuna co-govern ne party, ngizogovern noyele nzile ke ngoku. Ula Fikile galelekile right now. Because we thought this thing of the alliance is something there that kufuneka inkundla nangeke bayabelana inkundla. They think that they were ridiculing the party when it says let's reconfigure. That nobafuna itulo. Nazi itulo ke bazinika abanye abangazange bazabalazi. Wona le ikhundla basiphethe labantu zange bazabalazi kodwa basiphethe. Thina laba sizabalazi ukuthi wena nifuna itulo, nifuna inkundla, basinika abantu abangazabalazanga. So we are here, comrades, just as about to close. You must know, pre-94, first phase of 94, during the period of transition, post the 30 years of democracy, but as long as capitalism exists in your country, the cause for the struggle for socialism will always be correct. And this union must always fight for attainment of ideals of socialism. There's now other medication company. You can change text, language, you can change documents. There's nothing that's going to be a panacea of the problems the working classes face. And therefore, three things, the task ahead of us. The little gains we have of democracy must be defended during the government of national unity. Just like we fought for their attainment before 1994. They didn't come on a silver platter. We must push back and resist any attempt to reverse them. Yes. We don't know what these ministers, they will do to reverse the gain of democracy, but we know what they stand for. But we also know that even before they were here, the gains of democracy were being reversed. We're not going to lie and say, no, our problems are going to be bad because now Kuku DA. No, our problems were not as good even when the DA has not yet arrived. Now, Also, we don't know what are the pronounce ama-policies enze ahamba pronounce so ndiqimile into othi ndiqimile akukahlalo nokucabinet abantu pronounce ama-policies. Our presence, comrades, in each and every sector we organize in is going to be very important so that we influence the changing dynamics. The reality is, it's not scientific to think that you can give Steny Hazel Minister of Agriculture and nothing changes there. It's to be unscientifically thinking. That a person who does not like the national minimum wage, even march and lead a march to Kosato House on the eve of the election and declare workers the enemy number one of the state, can be given the responsibility to lead a department that houses most of the beneficiary of the national minimum wage, which is the farm workers. And you say it's not going to change that thing. It would be unscientific, comrades. It would be unscientific. There's no way that when employers apply, comrades, for exemption, there's no way that when employers say we want you to declare a ministerial sectoral determination and move away from the national minimum wage, he's not going to declare 1,500 as a minimum wage as opposed to the over 3,000 that we have signed. It's to be unscientific to think like that, comrades. That you can sit with the DA in the table and the DA does not fight for the constituency they represent in the GNU. It's not possible. They are going to fight for the constituency they represent. And like the president of Kosato said, we must help and strengthen the ANC inside the government of national unity to know that much as we appreciate that they are multi-class organization, they represent the interests of everybody, they must not forget the majority of the class they represent, because they will not forget. Freedom Front Plus will not forget, comrades. Mkhize is not forgetting. The one is forgetting why he's there. Everyone knows why he's there. We ask the ANC not to forget why they are there. That's all we must do. And we will not achieve that, them remembering by just telling them we must struggle to strengthen them. We must struggle to remind them because they are contested now. They are sandwiched, comrade. Our movement is sandwiched. From where I stand, we are under a government of an elite pact, which they choose to call it a government of national unity. From where I stand, that thing it's a pact of elite, business elite, political elite, maybe even religious elite, and so on and so on. Yes, Comrade Lindy, and I will explain, I know Mangel. Because we were canvassed to vote for a set of policies. We chose political parties we voted for on the basis of what they were selling to us. It is not true that I voted for them to work together. That's the thing that you are peddling, that's no. This is what the voter said, go and work together. No, there was no such a question in a ballot. In the ballot, there was no such a question of whether I want to vote with people. No, there was one. I was never asked if I want the ANC to work with the DA or whoever else. I was asked whether the ANC must govern, and I said yes. That's what I voted. I didn't vote for, I didn't answer that question of whether they must work together. When the reality dawned that no one won outright majority, all of us who have voted were never asked what must happen. So you can't say that thing that you did there is what we were. No, you should have come back. So these are the options. You voters, what are you saying? You didn't ask. So don't go around and say, this is what they said. We didn't say so. We didn't say, yes, we didn't win election, but we didn't say so through our vote at least. We should have been at least RGCs. RGCs now. To do what? To brief you. Briefing you, to brief you. When the things was not yet clear about which direction to go, we are very capable. We could have convened RGCs in a week and ask our structures. These are the options. And the product of the decision we take and announce as an NEC should have been a product of the RGCs, comrades. Now we are going to RGCs to do what? Because it's busy. So it is not true that the masses of our people voted for the government of national. They didn't. They voted for their respective political party. Then this elite leadership then met and agreed that we are going to expand government. What is it? The cabinet. All of them, DA, everybody was always advocating for a mean and a lean cabinet. But when the reality dawned, they agreed as an elite that we're actually going to expand it. It's going to be 70 people from 35. That's an elite. We were not there. We would not have agreed. We're not there. Somebody don't say we agreed, comrades. Now here are the consequences. So, the cabinet not successful. The DA wanted a lean and mean state. They expand the cabinet because it's not true. They don't care about the lean and mean as long as it affects them. But they can afford to expand. So when you go and must pass a budget for social expenditure, for public expenditure, for wage negotiations, for paying salaries and everything, because this public service is bloated. It's got too many public servants. They must cut. The DA manifesto says so. They must cut the expenditure that go to public servants. They will not say let's cut cabinet because so why must we accept that we must be cut when they can't accept we're not to be cut? So it's a struggle against the elite or between the elite and the masses of our people. Every cut of the expenditure is going to happen when it involves the working class, the workers, and the communities, but not when it involves the cabinet. They should have started by reducing or at least keeping it where it was. But expanded because they wanted to accommodate one another as elite. So we have to fight, comrades, to resist. So it's not even true and not possible, by the way, that all the 6 priorities of the ANC will see the dawn. As we speak, the Forum of Director Generals of South Africa are meeting to consolidate the manifestos of the various political parties that are in the government of national unity. And when that happens, it's a contested terrain. So every political party will fight for the manifesto to find expression in the program of government that president is going to announce on the 18th for the next 5 years. It's not true that it's going to be one political party. Why must those people allow that one political party run its manifesto when they are in government? It's not true. So the consolidation of those manifestos literally throws away any of your manifesto's aspirations and come together. Again, there's no consultation there. Because obviously you have to compromise and give away others. I mean, it's negotiations, but we're not being asked which one must we give away. So the question, comrades, has the NDR been defeated because of the loss of the electoral support? What does NDR being defeated means? Is it means because we didn't win outright majority? Or is it because the liberation forces have been crushed and been defeated? From where we stand, the NDR can only be defeated totally if each and every component of the NDR forces is crushed and defeated by our class opponent. For as long as Nehawu, as an instrument of the NDR and the revolution in the hands of the workers, for as long as the ANC, for as long as the party, COSATU, SAS, COSAS have not yet been defeated by the opponents, the cause for NDR and the hope of the NDR is still there. It can be rescued. The question is, what are we going to do to strengthen the forces of the NDR? How are we going to do to unite the forces of the NDR, rebuild them, and focus, because there's nothing to be arrogant about. There's nothing to be divided about. There's nothing to fight over it, except to rescue, at least to defend that which we have attained so far through our revolutionary cause. If we continually think that we've got a luxury of continuing calling each other names, we have got the luxury of sidelining one another and ignoring one another and be arrogant, there's only one way we're going as a revolutionary forces, and that's downwards, to totally losing power. We are aware that the horizon now, it will be about the local government elections. Who's going to be mayor? Angithi manje sisalwa ngokuthi ubani chief of staff, ubani head of ministry, ubani, so sisalwa amafaction azovuka just because omunye akaqashwanga, even though we have reduced the majority, but we still want to accommodate all of our people. When we are done, we will fight about who must be mayor and a councillor, and so it's going to be a huge battle to our movement. There will be no time to reflect the reality and build out. That's what we did after 2016. Instead of focusing, we fought about 2017. We fought about mayorship. Even now, we'll fight about 2026, we'll fight about 2027, and forget about the need to rebuild ourselves, which is a task. So if anybody and anything else fails, not Nehawu. Nehawu doesn't fail. Nehawu continues to struggle. Nehawu has got its founding roots in the Congress movement. It is inspired by those who came before us. It can't be this current generation of the leadership that failed in that revolutionary task. When those who came, when they were facing death at a time, did not fail. And they delivered this course that we are currently administering. Amandla!
Amandla! Amandla! Awethu! Matla! Kiaruna! Thank you very much. Long live Nehawu, long live. Phambili ngomzabalazo wabasebenzi phambili. Comrades, let me start first and greet the leadership of Nehawu, the president, the general secretary, and the members of the political school. Let me greet as well the general secretary of the South African Communist Party. Let me greet as well the deputy president of COSATU. I arrived here, probably it was in the middle of the speech, so the comrades kept me outside because they didn't want me to behave like one leader in one conference who tried to disrupt another president when he was delivering a political report. So I obliged, comrades, my apologies. The veterans that are here, that I've seen, of the SACP and the veterans of our movement who are present here today. I wanted to speak in the absence of media, but I've sanitized my presentation because I was going to say many things. So because the media is here, I'll skip to the script. Comrade Soli, I take this opportunity, comrades, to convey the greetings of the ANC leadership led by our president, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, to this political school. I must first and foremost congratulate the leadership of Nehawu for convening this very important national political school. This national political school comes at a time when, indeed, we need to go back to the basics. The theoretical foundations of our national liberation struggle as articulated through the National Democratic Revolution. Of key importance is what over the course of our struggle we have conceptualized as tools of analysis, which is at the core of Marxism-Leninism, historical and dialectical materialism, remains the foremost approach in understanding history, particularly on why things happen the way they do. Accordingly, it was Marx and Engels who famously asserted in the Communist Manifesto, I quote, "The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Free man and slave, patrician and plebeian, lord and serf, guildmaster and journeyman, in a word, oppressor and oppressed, stood in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight, a fight that each time ended either in a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large or in the common ruin of the contending classes." This assertion, comrades, echoes the challenge we are faced with today as the revolutionary movement. The opportunity that we are faced with as the revolutionary movement is a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large, and the threat being the common ruin of the contending classes. As we conducted the negotiations, we were fully conscious of the dialectical disposition of all the contending political forces involved, and this informed the conclusions that we made. Speaking to the Union of Young Communists of Cuba, the celebrated Che Guevara asserted in characterization of a revolutionary, I quote, "It will be so because you are young communists, creators of the perfect society, human beings destined to live in a new world where everything decrepit, everything old, everything that represents the society whose foundations have just been destroyed will have definitely disappeared. To reach that goal, we have to work every day along the lines of improving ourselves, of gaining knowledge and understanding about the world around us, of inquiring, finding out, and knowing why things are the way they are, and always considering humanity's great problems as our own." Close quote. The great Vladimir Lenin also made similar remarks on the first tasks of the youth when addressing the Third All-Russia Congress of the Russian Young Communist League in October 1920. I quote, "And so in dealing from this angle with the tasks confronting the youth, I must say that the task of the youth in general and of the Young Communist Leagues and all other organizations in particular might be summed up in single word: learn." Close quote. Comrades, our meeting here on the occasion of the Nehawu National Political School is testament to the fact that learning has no age limit, and especially political education. We can't be in politics and be in leadership and pride ourselves of being politically illiterate. We've got to be educated, and we've got to educate ourselves about political education itself. In fact, one of the most profound lessons in life is the fact that failure to learn will result in redundancy and irrelevance. That is what is meant by the negation of negation, which is one of the laws of nature in terms of dialectics. We therefore learn important lessons from the history of revolutionary struggle, that it can lead to triumph of the progressive forces or the mutual ruin of contending classes. Internationally, we have seen that through the Arab Spring, which led to the ruins of countries such as Libya, simply because the uprising was led by sound theory. Here at home, we have seen many organizations mushroom in a hurry out of anger and so forth, and that is not helping any revolutionary cause to a certain extent. This political school therefore seeks to take on the bull by the horns as we appropriately sharpen our theoretical understanding as the basis for a practical implementation of our revolutionary cause. Marx, Lenin, Che Guevara, and many others have given us blueprints on how to navigate complex challenges, informed by the contending forces and dialectical dispositions of their times. Ours, comrades, is to analyze the conditions we are in and reach original conclusions and not cut and paste past solutions that spoke to different conditions than we are faced with today. The importance of revolutionary theory cannot be underestimated. Even more importantly, that such theory must find expression in revolutionary movement. Nehawu will undoubtedly be stronger with its cadreship steeped in the theoretical foundations that this national political school has sought to unpack. And this will help strengthen the revolutionary movement and the labor movement. And ultimately, it is the masses of our people that will benefit from such theoretical clarity. Hence, the importance of Che Guevara's insistence, importance of gaining knowledge and understanding about the world around us, of inquiring, finding out, and knowing why things are the way they are, and always considering humanity's great problems as our own. I'm certain, comrades, we are here today because we have indeed considered humanity's great problems as our very own. Again, it was none other than Che Guevara who further attested to this when he declared, I quote, "At the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by the great feeling of love. It is impossible to think of a genuine revolutionary lacking this quality," close quote. When you love your people, you find personal political alignment with them. The ANC oath of membership, which stipulates that we join the organization freely and not for any material gain. When you have this mindset inculcated as the root of cadreship, then you have won half of the battle against ills like corruption. I therefore believe that this national political school will help us fight on, which I believe will be one with political consciousness. We have seen many comrades whom, when they have lost the radar of political consciousness, then justify things that cannot be justified. They then seek shortcuts that give pretense to radicalism and militancy, when, as we know, it is their stomachs doing the thinking and no longer their brains or political consciousness. That their own gut feeling is indeed about their own guts. It is lack of political consciousness, comrades, that even the conscience to know the difference between theft and lawful material gain becomes blurred. Recently, I had an honor of addressing a meeting of SAMU where I implored that as public servants at the coalface of service delivery, they can help all of us attain the objectives of service delivery, which will result in either the revolutionary reconstitution of society at large or in the common reign of contending classes. Likewise, as Nehawu, you are at the forefront of service delivery on a broad scope of the public service. None know the rules of public sector engagement than you, the PFMA, and so on. I believe, therefore, that this national political school will help ensure that we are on one page on the importance of what must accrue to workers as they discharge their duties, such as decent work for all, but equally, most importantly, service delivery. Following the outcome of the elections, we have characterized this period as a significant setback for the national democratic revolution. And it is practical steps such as the political school that will determine whether or not, as the ANC and as the alliance, we shall recover from this setback. nothing is automatic, comrades. The forces of counter-revolution will also seek to seize the moment. We have learned from many revolutions and liberation movements, both in the African continent and globally. Others never came back. They never even suffered a setback like we did. They suffered political annihilation and political obliteration. We have not been politically obliterated. We have suffered a setback with 6 million people voting for the African National Congress, which means people are saying we still want you to continue to lead in South Africa. But at the end of the day, you don't have outright majority. And that is a setback, which then, as a revolutionary party and revolutionaries, we need then to interpret that correctly. And the Communist Party at home, they say, we need to learn how to safeguard power. Now, I've never seen a 40% party leading government like we do. We have a president of the country who's the president of the ANC, and we are a 40% party. And among the other alternatives we had, something that was explored was that why don't we go and become backbenchers in parliament? We said we will be the biggest opposition, like never been seen before in any part of the world. So we chose to go forward because the mandate is clear that we need to continue to participate and also provide leadership. As the ANC and the Alliance, we will study the outcome of these elections, the causes and effects, and mostly and importantly, how we ensure we regain our political hegemony in the executive and the legislatures, nationally and provincially. We'll do so because we seek to strengthen our execution of the revolutionary cause, as informed by historic mission of democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, equal and prosperous society. As the ANC, we have over the past 3 decades led on service delivery, whose record is unprecedented in the post-colonial era. Yet we failed, comrades, to garner enough votes to ensure a decisive democratic mandate, partly because, among others, a war and propaganda that was waged against us seemed to win the day. And I want to congratulate Nehawu for working very hard to get that 6 million with us on the ground. It is very easy. It is very easy for other people to criticize, but I never even saw them on the ground, even door to door. But now they are loud mouths. They tell us who we must work with. I think I better listen to Nehawu and Samu and Kosatu and the Communist Party, not armchair critics. Because I say, with your criticism, if you just helped us with your armchair to say the right things, maybe we would have gotten 8 million. And then others have taken more than 2 million from us. And then they say we are selling out. And we told them that you are putting the revolution in a precarious position. And if you are doing this thing, for what? What do you want to achieve? Even today, we have not been told politically, what did people want to achieve? They have not come to us. Remember, comrades, in this election, we dropped to 40%. The opposition combined with their surrogates, they could not bring us below 40%. We were brought below 40% by one of our own. And that's what happened. And when that happened, we were told a big political school was opened in Soweto. Why this route? But we have not been told what is the solution on the table. And we are now to be blamed for this and that. We didn't take 2.3 million people and take them to nowhere. We have 2.3 million people. We took them to nowhere. We wanted to take people through the path of the NDR, social transformation, and deepen transformation in our country. That's where we wanted to take people to, not to no man's land. People have been taken to no man's land, no solution till today. Where were they taken to? At best, we are told that we must further bleed, actually. We must further bleed and we must die. And that is what we are told through the media rhetoric. As now members, you are the foot soldiers of the revolution in many respects. And I'm not patronizing you, comrades. I'm telling you what you know. You were with us on the ground, ourselves individually, collectively, workers of COSATU threw themselves in this campaign. And we worked very hard to bring the ANC back. Hence, we are very happy that we have this engagement today on the common challenges we face and how to theoretically engineer a better life for all our people. From you, we expect clarity and solutions, and how we can advance the revolution both in terms of struggle of workers as well as improving the lives of all our people. I believe, comrades, this national political school will become the backbone of such clarity and solutions. We believe through the leadership of Nehawu at all levels, we will succeed in our revolutionary cause to reconstitute society to mirror the end objectives of the National Democratic Society, as opposed to the common ruin of the contending classes that Marx and Engels cautioned us about. We are all in a strange territory, comrades, and we all have an obligation to up our game on how we conduct ourselves, particularly through the collectives of the ANC, the SACP, COSATU and its affiliates, as well as SANGO. The GNU that we have conceptualized demands of us to re-strategize, as we can no longer rely on the assumptions of yesteryear. We hope this national political school therefore become an ongoing process, factoring in lessons we would have acquired under the new terrains. We will strengthen our planning, monitoring, and evaluation mechanisms. All members of the executive, both nationally and in the provinces, must know they must account for the work they do as per the electoral mandate. Even though we suffered a significant setback, we are nonetheless still the largest expression of the people's democratic will. We are confident that we will emerge here with a fresh appreciation of the meaning of the laws of nature that we have referred to earlier on in our presentation, on the struggle and unity of the opposites, among others, on quantity and quality change, as well as the negation of negation, and how these laws apply both in the national and international conditions. But most importantly, what are the conclusions we must make, informed by these tools of analysis to spearhead our revolutionary cause? As the ANC will steam ahead and implement the election manifesto as derived from the ANC National Conference resolutions, we too shall go back to the drawing board on both theoretical and tactical issues to reposition ourselves in the current conjuncture. Working together will triumph of the current setback. And it's not a given that we will triumph. We've got to keep doing what it is right. And this political school will help us and enrich our thinking strategically going forward. Like we said, comrades, as we move to conclusion, we are in uncharted waters. Nobody can claim understand the current terrain better. But what is important is that we are in the driving seat. That's what is important. And when we talk to everybody, we didn't go to them with a cap in the hand. We did not get bullied. We made strategic choices. We are in a position now in terms of our country as the liberation movement at the center. And that needs to be guarded jealously. And we are going to engage even in the alliance, how these uncharted waters and the new terrain we are going to navigate going forward, because not everything is a given or is in a static situation. Things are fluid, they change all the times. This GNU we're talking about, will it go for 5 years? Will it not go for 5 years? Will it collapse? All of those things have been checked. And we know that anyone have got a choice, but at the end of the day, we know even if people leave, GNU in the current form will not collapse. And that is what we understand. But most importantly, is what do we do in that GNU as sustaining the national democratic revolution. And that is what is important for us going forward, comrades. So I wanted to go deeper and deeper about many other things, but because there is media here, so he speaks like he's at Bushiri's church, go deeper, Papa. So, but thank you very much, comrades. We want to thank you for inviting us, and we have also deployed comrades who will be here, and who will share perspectives with you. As always, this political school we have benefited a lot. I'm very disappointed that the Youth League was not here and they were invited. And I'm going to take it up immediately with the Secretary General of the Youth League. Because when we are invited to come and participate by our allies, we must be there. You know, comrades, people start talking about blackness and allies. Our allies and the progressive forces in the fold we are in is COSATU, Communist Party, SANCO. And those are our allies. Other people we meet in the streets who are tomorrow very radical, they wake up, you don't know what they represent. Those people are not allies. Siyapecha nje siyadlula. That's it. And siyapecha nje. We can't as a revolutionaries say that a party that is outside this fold is an ally. How do you trust them? If Solipito, the General Secretary of COSATU, says you are selling out, that's the ally we must listen to. Not somebody especha ngaye nje. Abanye basibhalisa i-examination, Comrade George Mashamba. When they came this time around and they said we must write an exam, we said that's not going to happen. We're not writing an exam here. Because that time when we were weaker and weaker, they told us, go and write an exam, and we wrote it. That exam. We finished the 10 points, and then we still failed the exam. But this time around, we're not going to fail. So we're firmly in charge, comrades. Ningoyiki. Nicinga ukuthi hayi akho revolution ihambayo apha and the policy, because that initiative is with us. Ayikho i-revolution ehambayo where you are in control with 40% and abantu basakhonza. Thina funeka silungise ukuhlala. Silungise ukuhlala, sijongane emehlweni, sixelelane inyani, silungise. That's how we will come back. We'll not come back with lies, covering each other's wrongs and arrogance. We will not come back. Ngoba kwa abasebenzi aba bazawusishiya. And then let GNU mayingabi ngcono ugqitha thina. ngoba sawuhlala kuye kude kube ngenaphakathi ukuthi kungcono sibagcina apha ku-GNU ingathi bangcono xa bahleli kuyo. Ndiyabulela maqabane. Enkosi.
The leadership of the African National Congress, led by the SG, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, and a member of the NEC, Comrade Lindiwe Zulu, who just assisted me with some Vaseline for my lips. I appreciate Comrade Lindy. Combat gelo. Fellow combatant kumkhonto wesizwe. Not Mkhonto wesizwe party, Mkhonto wesizwe. The president of the World Federation of Trade Unions and former president of Nehawu, Comrade Mapaila, and all our internationalists present here, leadership of our movement, our stalwarts, Mama Gwaza, Ubabu Njigelana, Ubabu Mashamba, and all others. The leadership of the Progressive Youth Alliance, the Treasurer General of our Young Communist League, Comrade Mendi, Ramakhwakwa, and other leaders, the leader of COSAS, and other leaders who are here. Let me observe all protocols, comrades, and begin to talk to the keynote message that I've been asked to deliver today. I want to start first by appreciating the role that Nehawu has played in the recent elections. The volunteers, the brigades, who were all over, everywhere. You fought a great fight. You defended this revolution to the extent that it can still breathe. We thank you very much. When I addressed your political commission, when we were preparing what we called the rescue mission of the National Democratic Revolution, which was stolen by the reactionary forces of the DA in publicity on the streets to say it's a rescue mission for South Africa. But we were rescuing, or we sought to rescue the National Democratic Revolution and its socialist orientation. It was not just a mission to rescue this NDR for what? Precisely because we wanted to orientate this to the socialist alternative. We equally appreciate all other volunteers from the rest of the movement, the Sacp brigades, the Red Brigades, and those from the ANC and others. But Comrade GS, Comrade Nyuko comes to me, he says, after finishing this, can you please share your notes? We want to share with the media. I said, gosh, I didn't know there's media invited. So I'll sanitize my notes. Yes, I'll try. I'll speak in a sanitized form, sanitize my notes, make it available possibly tomorrow so it can be distributed. I had intended that it's going to be distributed. But I arrived here, I found that there's media. I know that they are going to source it nonetheless. So I have to sanitize it. I'm married to a journalist. So the point in the context of the media was how candid one could be to ourselves, if this is a political school, to assess the moment, because certainly it's not just a general political school. It's a political school to respond to the moment that our revolution is faced with. Equally, the moment of the state of the working class, the material condition of the working class. So the point is how candid yourself are or want to be in your assessment. And I'm glad that fellow fighter, the fighting shop steward, you're brilliant. While listening to you always, I love that. Yeah, you're brilliant. Now the point was, okay, let me say this. You got a sense of grasp. Ibambe la kumfana kithi. Ungayeki ibambe noma ishisa. Igrasp ikhona. Igraspile ibambe. And I think it's important ungayeki la ibambe khona. Noma ishisa kangakanani. You see, I listened to you. And I'm glad that after you spoke so well to present the material condition of the workers in our country, the leading detachment of our revolution, the SG of the ANC came and talked the reality of now, where we are. This is a balance, not imbalance. It's a balance because the SG explained to you the material reality now, that which matters now. That there's a government of national unity is the reality. We didn't want it. Yes, as a Communist Party, we didn't want it. We expressed our views about this. Yes, that's fine, but it's there. That's the point. Now, let me start here, Comrade Mapaila, because we discussed this thing about the school. And I must commend you for leading a wonderful preparation of this school, the documents. Wow. I look at this document. In my words, I'm going to erase this thing in the document. I'm going to give it to you, but let me say it. I had a word that says, but you know, South Africa lacks serious revolutionaries. No. This is the point. It's in my notes. And I'm like, we lack serious revolutionaries. At the same time, I'm like, okay, how can a revolutionary movement live in an illusion? Thinking that we can live side by side with capitalism. And the force of capital can sit with you on the table and share the crumbs because you have nothing, you enjoy the crumbs, and you think you can continue with this kind of relationships. But I said, well, okay. We have to wake up or perish as this revolution. Don't be naive. Even when we are not we are in a social science, and social science sphere is quite amenable to many changes. Moods and everything else that happens changes perception and reality and so forth. But the point is, comrade, don't be naive. This revolution has been struck a major blow. The SG is right, we're not yet defeated, but we've been hit hard. We in the party can actually even say we have been, not only did we suffer a major setback, we have been defeated in a battle, not in a war. I come from the military struggle. I understand these things. You get defeated in a battle, you retreat, you plan, you gain strength, you win another battle. Our revolution has been, it's a long revolution. Since the imperialists came here in the 1400s, Bartholomew Dias killed the first person African in the Eastern Cape. Then a revolution began to defend the land. More than 400 years of fighting. In the period, we had successes. We lost battles, we won other battles. But the critical moment was the democratic breakthrough of 1994 that accorded the liberation forces to take charge of the levers of political administration. not political power, because there's always this misconception about the concept of power. There's never been an exercise of political power appropriately in this country, not once. Now, that is why, even at this point where we are, when we reflect, we need to reflect on how we've exercised political power or the political administration role that we had to enhance the liberation movement to the ability to exercise political power. We have failed to do that. This will be one of the critical questions. I'll rework this thing differently. But now, comrades, the South African working class and the National Democratic Revolution, as well as the SACP, have new task emerging from this consequence of losing political power. Now, let me say something at the beginning, which I thought I'll say somewhere, but at the beginning, what the SACP had said about this moment. We said in 2022, as the SACP, at our 15th Congress, we said, and we anticipated this period. Don't say we did not say it. We said the coming elections are going to be difficult for the African National Congress and the Liberation Forces. And that in this period, we are going to suffer unless certain things are done. I want to quote it properly. No, it's not digital. I'm not using digital. No. I want to quote it properly because it's far, but it's important I say it because I'm also summarizing my notes. We said, if the ANC doesn't take reconfiguration of their alliance seriously and doesn't itself undergo a serious process of renewal and turnaround, the ANC is not going to win the coming elections. We said this in 2022. But we said further, it will be the majority party. It will be forced to establish coalitions. But the character of that coalition will be determined by two factors. One, the character of the ANC at the time that it makes coalitions. Two, the strength or weaknesses of the popular forces and the working class. This is the moment we are. It was not prophecy. It's in our program. South African wrote, South African struggle for socialism. We said so in our program. I know that most of you don't like to study our program, but we studied. Because we said, firstly, the ANC, it's seriously factionalized and it suffers moral and political decay, which is widespread, and that future electoral prospects remains precarious. This is the SACP in 2022. 3 months later, I addressed COSATU Congress. There were murmurings that, no, the Communist Party must not enter the electoral space because it is not ready. As a newly elected General Secretary, I went to the political podium to the front, I addressed the Congress. I said, don't say it because the SACP is ready. Yes, that's what I said. All right. Whatever decisions that have been made or taken should not take this reality that we raised as the Communist Party. The fact that there's been no reconfiguration of the alliance. In fact, in April this year, last year, the ANC-NEC post-NASREC conference, when it was supposed to deal with the reconfiguration of the alliance, it basically said, no, it will undergo something called ANC renewal. And they basically said reconfiguration of the alliance is akin to liquidating of the ANC. There's no struggle against this. This is the reality that we are faced with. So, comrades, take yourself serious as revolutionaries. No, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's not about that. Okay. This moment, comrades, pre-election and now, we characterize this as, we went to the election period, for instance, as a liberation movement, when the working class was suffering an intense crisis of capitalist socio-economic reproduction, and what we characterize as the crisis of living of the working class. And we then said the crisis of living of the working class made the working class, the people, the majority in society, not to afford life itself. Because of the strength of capital that had almost overcome the ability of the leadership in government led by popular forces, the liberation movement. And we therefore said, let's embark on a mission to rescue this moment. It was not to be. We failed to rescue that moment. But we did contributed to the fact that the Moonshot Pact that was established by capital, not just by capital, but by imperialist forces. And let me be very clear about this question, comrade, because we said when we addressed the January 8th of the ANC early this year, we said the following. We said, South Africa is suffering from twin threats of the National Democratic Revolution. Twin counter-revolutionary threat. One is international capital and capitalist system, its surrogates here, who believe that they can no longer make profit under the leadership of the African National Congress because the masses of our country are demanding more, and the ANC can no longer afford not to listen to the voices of the poor in this country. This is our analysis. We said it in public at a rally, let alone in commissions. I addressed one of your political commissions. I raised this question. It's an analysis, a class analysis, this question. Now, what capital then sought to do is to replace the ANC with someone that can guarantee them profitability in production, not production to meet social needs of the people. And it is in this regard that we have even highlighted how this particular Moonshot Pact was conceived and established. We have not hidden it. The media do not want to report about it. Okay, let's take, for example, the elections campaign. Because we were attacking the role of the South African media in the Moonshot Pact, propping up the Moonshot Pact. And we are not saying that's the main reason why we lost election, but it also contributed because they created a single agenda in the country. And I hope, let me suggest, not hope, let me suggest that let's print GS, Nehawu, for this delegate. The declaration of the Gdansk meeting in Poland. The declaration from a conference called Conference Against Totalitarianism and in Defense of Democracy, which was convened last year, June, in Poland. We've spoken about it in public, even when I addressed the big media forum with Comrade Solipitwe and Comrade Mbalula at the Hani Memorial. The media were all there with their cameras. And I spoke when they were still, their cameras were still on. I even spoke about names of collaborators of this international agenda in the name of defense of democracy and against totalitarianism. The European Solidarity Center that convened this meeting, working with the Brenthurst Foundation, led by Greg Mills, and senior journalists who attended this meeting. They may or they may not have known the agenda, but clearly they played the agenda, the role of that particular outcome of that particular meeting when they are back here in South Africa. Amongst them, for instance, prominent South Africans who participated, and those of you, including from this media institution, they've hosted no less than one or two of them, but multiple of them in the analysis pre-elections and post-election. For instance, the last minister, defense minister of apartheid regime, Rolf Meyer, was one of the attendees of this meeting in Gdańsk. Yes, all of a sudden, Rolf Meyer was resurrected from somewhere to be a commentator, even on the concept of the GNU. Everywhere on television, SABC, ENC, everywhere. It's planned by those who are controlling the media houses. No problem, I have no problem at all against journalists. Because when a photographer or political reporter comes here, he's told by the editor what they want, or the political editor what they want from this meeting. They give them even questions what to ask. So Rolf Meyer was one of them. Dr. Ray Hartley, former editor, think of the Sunday Times and particularly of the Daily Dispatch, was one of them. He's a director at this Brentes Foundation. Dr. Mpumelelo Mkhabela, former editor of Sowetan, the Lovely People's Paper, was one of them. They were the main stars of the commentariat in the run-up to elections. Was this innocent? Then we have even there, president of the IFP, Hlabisa, was there in that meeting. There were others too. Yes. There were others too from here. The editor of the Daily Maverick was there. Now, these are realities, not science fiction. It's the reality of forces working against this revolution in the name of media freedom. Articulating one agenda, there must be change. The revolution has failed. There were several others. Comrade Lindy Zulu, as a fighter of our liberation movement, you'll know this. There was the leader of UNITA in that meeting from Angola. There was the leader of Renamo in that meeting from Mozambique. There was the leader of the MDC here, Tendai Biti, who after this year around March, April, I can't remember the exact date because of the campaign was too heavy. He came and addressed a seminar organized by the Daily Maverick in Cape Town, a newspaper we have said in public as the South African Communist Party that has been funded by the State Department of the US through the US consulate in Cape Town. We've never hidden this thing. We wrote it in our Umsebenzi online. They can't take us on because they know we have the proof. Now, a counter-revolution is unleashed on the revolutionary movement when we say we control levers of state power. We allow them to run havoc with us, with our revolution. Atsiko serious, my kaban. And the workers, they are going to suck you until your last drop. That is why it's in your best interest to fight. That's one element of how this thing was coordinated. This guy, Professor Gumede, who's the chairperson of the Moonshot Pact, a marketeer. What independence? So that's one element. Then there's other coordinations from the US. The Congress of the US attacks us. If you read the Congress of the US, Tinyiko, share that information with the GS here so that I can circulate it to the members. The Democrats and the Republicans in the US are taking South African government, punishing us for our stance on Israel. I mean, on Palestine against, in fact, on Israel as it kills Palestinian people. They say, no, we must be removed from political power. because we work with countries that are against the US, China, Russia, Iran, and especially in Palestine, Hamas. The writing was on the wall. So it was not something hidden. Yabona, the Communist Manifesto, I was glad Comrade Mkhize quoted it quite extensively. The issue is whether he was quoting it to justify the moment or to appreciate what has happened, something that we need to debate. The Communist Manifesto says, in the revolution, sometimes the battles, class battles, are sometimes hidden, sometimes open. We, as the revolutionary movement, the tools of analysis should assist us to understand when the class battles are underground, are hidden, so we can decode them, even when they are open. So this is one of our tasks. So the Brentes Foundation is owned by the Oppenheimer family. Now, the third document that I need you to be printed for is the fourth quarter of the political party funding of the IEC from the 29th of February until now, fourth quarter. Go and see who funded who. It's public knowledge. It's not a hidden thing. Now, amongst that, for instance, is just to highlight for you, Mkhize, because I was khuluma imali la. Yabona le party kuthiwa Rise Mzansi. It's a new party of some so-called black intellectual, a former journalist, Uzongeza Zibi, who established together my friends like or Mashele Prince, this thing called the Midrand Group. Black right-wing intellectuals. Even if they may come from the liberation movement, some of them, or may have been student activists. Now, it writes in Mzansi, registers almost over 30 million income in this fourth quarter. As guys in a single quarter, let alone in a year. See Communist Party. That's why they need bafandwa ngale mali engaga to contest the liberation movement. Action SA gets about 32 million. A new party born last year. The ANC, there are many others. Bossa and them, they are funded by everyone else from this Oppenheimer group. Then ANC, our movement, gets 46 million. The DA gets 126 million. 1/4. Let's contest against capital. We said this in the campaign. Of course, you know, most of our campaigns, these media people, they never covered us, particularly me. That's the truth. Throughout the campaign, I worked every single province, every single day. They never came. Because it was clear, because we were exposing also the agenda that they were carrying in the name of informing the public. No grudges. Never, not at all. I'm not even a person of that particular space. But the point is, the writing was on the wall for this liberation movement. We've been attacked by forces of capital internationally and locally. Their stooges here are led by the DA, which coordinated all other parties to condemn and attack our liberation movement, given free airtime everywhere. The Gdansk meeting also takes in the declaration that is signed by these parties, also says they are imploring on international internet sites to use their algorithms to change perceptions against regimes that they characterize as totalitarian and in defense of democracy. So during this period of the elections, if you went into the internet and typed African National Congress, the first 10 stories will be stories about corruption, about poor service delivery, about every other wrong thing that African National Congress has done. It's configured by Google, Microsoft, and others. And this new boy cannot be a girl. All bad things are brought by boys in general. This company called NVIDIA. Yeah. They came in, changed the perception. Configured by so-called liberal forces, they are so impatient. They are so intolerant. Everyone, even amongst themselves, they fight amongst themselves. That is why, for instance, even a rogue guy like Trump, they go for him, the liberals. Here, you are fooled by liberals. I've got my notes, they are written, handwritten, President. Central Committee. I'm debating the state of liberalism in South Africa and in the world. Because we are suffering from this crisis as a movement. Now, the second crisis, which was also we characterized as a counter-revolutionary threat to our movement, was characterized by internal divisions in the movement, factionalism, gatekeeping, and people arrogance and owning the African National Congress. Yabona, even when things happen, they don't want to accept because there's reality. Bayala. Yabona, in the military struggle, I come from that background. If you don't accept reality, we are far. That's the truth. And we know that. And that is why there's extermination of former combatants in the leadership of the movement. It's by design. Because this faction cannot stand the criticism of these forces. Comrade Lindy, I'm with you. I know when you suffered either from belonging, they characterize you as this particular force, but the main thing is that for anything that has happened, you should be in the top 50 of the ANC list. You are a victim of factions. And because of what you stand for. Don't feel ashamed that you didn't make the list. You are a great combatant of our liberation army. They are suffering from that. That's why they exterminate our comrades in this regard. So that is why, for instance, when you see the moral decay that has entered through the ANC, the loss of moral leadership of society by the African National Congress, the decline of this moral leadership of the ANC, the forces that represent the primary forces or the key forces of the liberation movement in this country. When that moral leadership implodes, you can't lead society. Amongst us here, we've got a stalwart of our party, Comrade George Mashamba. He was the chairperson of the ANC Integrity Commission. Principled man. Oprah George uzenzela umsebenzi kanhlangano weKongolos. But I know the time this will let a crisis. They remove him. You remove the chairperson of Integrity Committee. It's when a revolution is in crisis, it's suffering moral degeneration and moral crisis. That's why anyone who can stand for principle must be shifted. No, not even proper discussions appropriately and so forth. But let me not say that because I have booked an appointment with this Comrade George next week. It's next week, Brother George, I guess, if they've confirmed. So it was supposed to be this week. It was postponed because of this political school for a period of criticism. I'm going to have 3 hours minimum of criticism as a leader of the Communist Party by Comrade George Mashamba. We have invited Comrade Jenny Schreiner to be the script writer. Comrade Caesar, you wish you could be in that meeting in your shower. Ngitshela my weaknesses wami angizokhuluma ma leaders. I'm humbling myself to the leadership and the experience of our liberation movement. None of these leaders want to be criticized, the current crop, including myself, but I'm going to be subjected to this process. The issue is not whether I've accepted to be subjected to criticism. It's whether I'll implement the outcome of the criticism. That's why I've asked that this criticism is not just me and Comrade George Gimlalele. I need someone to take notes so that later on we can make it public to the Politburo about the key pointers that came out of that particular criticism and what I've done about them as a person. Now, This trend, comrades, that we have seen, the decline of the liberation forces, our movement, and everybody else, has led to the situation that we feel today, where our movement and the liberation forces were defeated in an electoral battle. I use the word defeat clearly. We lost power. We lost power, Maqabana. You know, one comrade even said to me, yeah, the way we have lost power, now I don't know what it's from the trade union deputy president of Nehawu. He says, hey, I don't know this time, Guti, because sometimes even when we don't agree with these people, we could call them. Uzomenza anu Minister of Public Administration. Ngailwa le position, Guti, no, whatever happens, this must remain in the movement. Yambili. Yambili. Not without a fight. We fought. We didn't even want, as you know, this so-called GNU. It's a coalition in my view. GNU is it's a notion that is neither here nor there. We thought we could set up government with a minority government with forces like the EFF. And I can say this on record, you people from the media. Yes, I can say it on record. We said it as a Communist Party. The day after the elections were announced, we met as the Alliance Secretariat. We said to Comrade Mbalula, and I don't want this matter to be abused. We said at this moment, the critical point is that the liberation forces must secure political power, the leadership of this transition. We said so. But we anchored this on the basis of a process we characterize as no with the neoliberal forces of the DA and no with the counter-revolutionary forces of MK Party. This was our stance, which also was accepted by the extended Politburo of the Communist Party. So we took this line as we engaged with our allies. In that process, we were then left with engaging possibly the forces of the EFF and others to set up a minority government. And we realized that if we leave this to other people when we've said it must happen, it will not happen. I took the initiative. I called the EFF. I had several meetings with them. So it's for the record. You will know I have meetings with them. To ask them that, guys, let's join these forces and keep out these right-wing reactionary forces out of the process. Of course, during that week, the ANC, NEC says, no, we're going with the government of national unity. We are inviting everyone. Then the EFF comes and say, no, they're not going to join that if everyone is included, particularly the DA and the EFF, I mean the Freedom Front. They even went further than us and said, no, not just, these are colonial forces. So when they did that, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because now the ANC has been pushed once more onto the corner. But we never stopped the ANC even from talking to MK Party. We said that even in our statement. We said talk to everyone, as we have said you want. But we said, ideally, if you were to establish government, no to the forces of state capture and forces of neoliberalism, of austerity. Well, things moved fast. As you know, former President JZ went to say, okay, we're not going to accept these elections. I think people started shivering. Even Black Twitter started responding, oh, CNZ. When the middle class get too easily excited. They start saying, hey, what have we done? We're not asking for this outcome. Well, of course, that's the outcome. Now, with that, the Chief Justice convened a meeting in Parliament. The ANC goes there. It has no revolutionary forces backing it. The ANC had to set up government. I go to the EFF, guys, what are you doing? They said, no, I want to be serious. Went to the ANC, hey man, what's your problem? Why can't we be patient and engage with these forces? No, two problems. Where is Sydney? Philip. Yeah. I was to convene school no man and discussing this important question in the Communist Party directly with the General Secretary. I have opened the line to you. Two questions arises out of this, Comrade Sydney. in the ANC, there's always been a neoliberal faction, which is the dominant faction today. So it's a class battle to push that neoliberal faction inside the African National Congress, because its orientation will always go towards the DA. That is why the murmurings, even during the campaign, was that there's negotiations between the ANC and the DA. People denied this thing and so forth and so forth. And this thing was now coming to fruition. We tried to move around. First, because the ANC, after 1 or 2 meetings, they rejected the EFF, said, no, we can't go. The EFF don't respect us and so forth. I did not give up. The first day I went to meet Comrade Floyd is the day after I buried my brother. I lost my brother when I was at the Shingange rally. I went to see him. I said, hey man, comrade, you can't continue this way. I went to the ANC. It was back and forth, begging people to actually focus on the possible revolutionary path. It will be better to be irritated by the EFF in cabinet than to be irritated by the neoliberal forces who want to be dominant and take control of the revolution. I'm not the leader of the EFF, but I went to see them, and I want to appreciate that they respected my engagement. I know them. I gave Floyd his first job. He was a leader of the Young Communist League. Yes, not that he has to pay back anything. Yes, but we have a line. I can talk to him. Nothing stops me from talking to him. So we have an engagement. And Dr. Ndlozi, we had engagement with all of them. We agreed, guys, this is now the new strategy going forward. But some of the comrades in the ANC, particularly this neoliberal faction, was too impatient. They did not want to engage with them. They did not even want to offer them something serious. And yet they went on to offer these reactionary forces, anti-revolutionary forces, colonial forces, so much power. This is the issue. Then the other faction inside the African National Congress was too helpless to reconfigure this. They debated in the NEC and so forth, we understand, but it didn't go anywhere. The ANC had its set up political power, then it has to do this with the DA. But listen to how the DA tops up this thing to their advantage. In the morning in Parliament, President Adrian Basson of News 24 releases to the media 2 signatures, Fikile Mbalula, Helen Zille, to the public. Nothing else, just the signature. Everyone is furious, is angry. The ANC is sold out, coordinated. That same day, so it doesn't give the people the truth. What Comrade Mbalula was saying here is the truth. When we engage with them, the ANC said, okay, we've developed this framework for engagement. We are setting up government of national unity. This will be the statement of government of national unity. We said, okay, bring it here so that we want to make inputs. They brought it to us. I gave final authorization 2:30 in the morning to Dr. Alex Mashil for our comments. They were meaningless. Yes, they were meaningless. You need to know these things. They were meaningless as I give final authorization 2:30 in the morning to Alex. Ngimfonele emhlekazi usavukile uthi no, I have left my house for this task. I'm awake. I was waiting for this. He sent it to the ANC. What is signed is not the comment that we asked from the alliance. Because we went Sayolo and Alento said, no, you can't have a statement that has not been approved by the alliance. Usolipid, Kosatu. But it's Fagabantu set up this thing, they ignore their views. But the issue is, when Basson, Adrian, threw this thing in the media, already showing the ANC as a sellout, opting to work with the DA. As things are taking place in Parliament, lunchtime, Steenhuisen addresses a press conference, announces the agreement that they've signed this agreement with the African National Congress. We were not party to it. So that you know, we're not party to it. Now, we are where we are now because we were defeated in the electoral battles. In the notes, you will see the analysis of where things were, including, for instance, from 1994, when we received 12.2 million votes, to today when we receive 6.5 million votes. In 1994, the population of South Africa was far less below 40 million, almost just around 40 million. It's a major loss. So we need to reflect. This political school must not just be a theory in abstract. Should be a theory reflecting the material reality of the revolution that had suffered a shuddering setback. It's a loss. We have to reflect on this. And of course, we are analyzing what also could have caused this, what we call the rise of reactionary ethno-nationalism. And this rise of reactionary ethno-nationalism is not just here. How, for instance, we lost KwaZulu-Natal. At one point, the entire national leadership of the alliance, all national Central Executive Committee and NECs of various affiliates of COSATU were there. Central Committee of the Communist Party was there. We even asked assistance from Nehawu, Comrade Tiji. She helped us to get our team there to do the work, trying to get KZN to win that province, understanding the threat. We still lost. Major loss there. From almost 54% to 18%. Huge loss. These are things that we must reflect as we are developing our theory. What is it? Fellow fighter, fighting Shop Stewart, had said this thing, that you can't say, deal with those hooligans in May, a few weeks before the elections, the arrogance of leadership. But what about these arrogant leaders? We still reward them in the coalition system. Yabona ufele fighter ngiyakuzwa uthi sinoliwe ngoba it's just unbelievable. But this rise of reactionary ethno-nationalism is not just only here. It's an international phenomenon. When you see Trump, for instance, in the US, talking about Make America Great Again, the MAGA, campaigning with this particular slogan, mooring everybody. He hates communists with passion. He even characterized the Democratic Party, the Democrats in the US, as left. I mean, really, Trump. So here at home, we had such parties like the regional parties that emerged, including Umkhonto we Sizwe Party, that we still need to go to this question, to deal with this question properly as the liberation movement. And we'll come back to Nehawu for this thing, because it's unacceptable, comrades, that today, my own history in Umkhonto we Sizwe is tarnished by the name of an organization set up only to contest the elections. Everyone, when you say MK, so the history, heroic history of sacrifices, of the leadership of the fourth pillar of our struggle, the combatants who were prepared to die for the liberation of this country, is tarnished once off. The courts accept this for the sake of peace in election. That's what bourgeois politics does for you. We still have to fight this question to reclaim the name of Umkhonto we Sizwe properly in history. So it is against this thing that we have seen these forces, for instance, all of them mobilizing against the African National Congress. And at the same time, we had a very bad, if you like, campaign. Yabona, for instance, that's the point I was saying, that fellow fighter is loyal. But you know, who was the head of our elections? Sibiza ukuthi a collective thing then. But who was the head of our election? Say, Slego Gwina, deploy as the chief whip of the ANC in parliament. But alliance. Niyaphana nje. No, nothing. I like him. It's a comrade, good comrade. But he was the commander of the forces, the ground forces, for this campaign. We have suffered big things. Now, something that we need to deal with properly, and we will go into the analysis around that, particularly around the campaign, where when we enter the campaign, the Treasury imposed austerity measures. Now, ingwenya one day yabuyala uDecember. Uthi hayi nopala ubrifa mina benginonopala siku lunch afikile kula political commission. Uthi ngiphethe victory enzima kabi. Siwinile. Ithe uthini enobhala uthe sibuye ukuwina sishaye ugovernment sistopile lento lena siwinile for abasebenzi kodwa siye announce kahle ngiyama umjito excited. Yo ngayokhuluma ngayo bengiyo address extended central committee communist party ngikhuluma ngayo lento le to support this victory and ukuthi government must comply and respect this agreement that the workers have won major victory. So, but listen to what the Minister of Finance during the campaign, that's Ino Godongwana. Utu Godongwana, angeke kube no change in this country. There will be no change. This Ino Godongwana during the election. There will be no change. This working class that is in a crisis of living is being told by the real Minister of Finance that there will be no change. His first interview after taking an oath as the new Minister of Finance in this government of national unity. His first interview, let me be clear. I watched him on television, I think it was SABC. He says, let me be clear. Fiscal consolidation is here to stay. Sydney, explain to this political school what is fiscal consolidation. Utilomjita, austerity will stay. Neoliberalism will stay. Attack on the workers will stay. Confidently. Ay, man, my comrade, please. This political school must reflect on this question, no pal. So it is this kind of things. Now, this morning, I listened to the president speaking. He was addressing a conference on climate change. Lentong is real. Makaban, sisenkingeli. The revolution is senkingeli. The revolution is in deep crisis. We said to the ANC, before we went to this government of national unity, we proposed. And this proposal was accepted by our comrades in COSAD. Even the ANC accepted it. Comrade Fikile, Mbalula, SG was saying this, we agreed. He said, comrade, can we have a political commission to deal with this moment? Even before we set up any other thing. Our comrades were too busy in the negotiations. There was no time. We tried to get this thing done. It was not possible. Because I listened to the president this morning. Ukulumange blended finance. This is the thing that we are taking here. This is the cost, the instrument of austerity in our case are driven by this language, normalization, blended finance, risk what. So you see the addiction to neoliberalism by the current government. Its orientation is such that nothing will change for the better for the working class in this country. So the working class has to stand on its own and demands its real share of its sweat. Not allow anyone who take political administration and use the name of the revolution to go and condemn the interest of the majority, the workers. This should be rejected at all costs. It is in this regard, comrades, that all of these things that we think we're going to do and change the situation will not happen under this current administration. The point is, what will be our relationship with the GNU as the working class? Discuss this question. How are you going to relate? Fighting Shopsteward says, Opale the position, your agriculture to stay in the most vulnerable sector of our workers, knowing his position. So the issue is mobilization today of the working class forces to deal with this reality of Steenhuisen and others. But the president was talking about these de-risking issues about climate change, bringing leverage of private capital. I said to the president, even during this period, I had met him more in the last 6 months, one-on-one, during these last 2 weeks for consultation. He was available. President. Yeah. During this period, last 2 weeks, before the cabinet was established, I met him more one-on-one than in the last 6 months. This is my ally. Yeah. So one of the things I said to him is that, no, Lalela Msegas. And he rejected it because he didn't implement it. We said, let's build public economy. We are not going to rely on the private sector to solve South Africa's problem. It's not going to happen. The task of any capital private sector is to make profit. That's all. They are not interested whether what they are doing is good for you or not. Marx says it very clearly. When a bourgeoisie makes a jacket like this, it's not because he wants you to wear it during winter. It's because he wants to sell it to you to make profit. It's as simple as that. I said to him, and I've said this in public, that let's explore other methods of raising money. Don't keep on saying there's no money in this country. And I still say it. It's nonsense, that thing, that there's no money in this country. There's too much money in this country. The money is allowed to be in the hands of capital to do as it pleases because our movement has decided to abandon the critical role of the public sector to build institutions that will build the capacity of the working class, even the capacity of the state to deliver on public economy. We have destroyed public economy. That is why everything else is about procurement. Even in public administration, most of you here are professionals. Generally in the public administration, you find a professional, their job is to sign documents. Chain line document, good no. Has solely complied with the procedure. Wow, I attach my signatures. Has solely complied with this thing. Is this the right amount that I can sign? That's the thing called submissions. Now, this is a problem because we're killing the capacity of the state by undermining the public service. The public servants that we have employed on the basis of their professional skills. Fellow fighter explained this thing clearly about in fact, Sydney, let's do what the fellow fighter was saying about the hospital. It's a booklet to explain to the workers, to the working class, what we are dealing with. There can be no better explanation of the crisis we face than what he explained about, just as that example of the hospital. How the public servants are blamed left, right, and center when the problem is not them, when they are not responsible for anything. This is the crisis that we face. So we have to make a turnaround. And in this turnaround, comrade, we say it will start with what we call self-revolution. The self-revolution must start with us. We in the Communist Party must undergo self-revolution. The Chinese have said to us, they've been studying almost a period of 6,000 years of dynasties and states, the rise and fall, even of organizations. And they say one of the biggest reasons they find throughout this many thousands of years of Chinese civilization, the rise and fall of dynasties, is the subjective factor, the weakness of leaders who do not want to respond to the material condition of the people. They use the material condition of the people to live large, to create conditions for good life for the elite and leave the masses on their own. And the masses have always revolted. When the people have nothing to lose, they will always revolt. So the Chinese say the solution they have found is a system of self-revolution where individuals can undergo deeper introspection, change their ways of doing things, the methods of doing things, criticize themselves and accept criticism and engage in constructive criticism and become disciplined and lead a revolution for what it is selflessly. We are losing that as a revolution. We don't even have the machinery. When we create that machinery, that's why Comrade George Mashamba can be removed as the head of Integrity Commission of the ANC, because there's been a change of government, but the leaders are still there. The ones that have appointed him are still there. There's no rebellion inside the movement. Why go to a decision in the national executive? In a lungelo set up my structures. Why? You can't undergo self-revolution in that regard. Now the point is, can the party itself, what kind of self-revolution should the party itself, the Communist Party, the party of the working class, undergo? And in that self-revolution, for instance, or in the context of where we were unable to self-revolutionize, what has been the impact of the party's weaknesses on the standing of the working class in our country? Equally, the state of the working class, how has that impacted on the inability of the liberation movement to self-revolutionize? Basically, to self-change. How is it possible that now, if you want to take power in the ANC, you go and capture a faction and pay it well? Yeah, they'll do work for you. You have what you call a bishop. Leadership. Yes, these are the people in charge of processes. Leadership. If you are a little bit popular, you will be nominated. But it's just to make sure that it lasts yalala. But otherwise, now this is part of the problem. So we have to engage in this particular question of self-revolution and how, for instance, we can provide solidarity and change the material living conditions of the people on the ground. This book, it's a bourgeois book in the context of what you are reading. It's written by Martin Wolf. Read only one chapter. If you read others, it's also for interesting to understand how the bourgeoisie think, not to be taken over by them. When they were dealing with this reality of the rise of ethno-nationalist parties across the world, and they make a reflection on the US. In this book, The Crisis of Democratic Capitalism, Martin Wolf says this thing. I want to quote him. He says, there's a chapter there is called The Perils of Populism. Because one of the things we suffered were the populist forces, both right-wing populist forces and left-wing populist forces. He says, in these populist forces, they create a general toxic environment of individualism and become authoritarian populist. And they create hyper-individualism, which they characterize by the belief that one is allowed to do whatever one wishes. And he says this thing is not new because it was at the basic foundation of liberal constitution of the American society. He says this is nothing new, for example, but these attitudes are now focused on toxic and destructive social bonds and social order of society, creating instead what Thomas Hobbes called the war of all against all. This is the people like JZ. They want to disregard all the rules. And when they disregard the rules, they say liberty gives them the license to destroy. Now we're faced with this kind of scenario. Tina, we tie ourselves with bourgeois rules. That makes it difficult for us to transform society and lead a revolution. We need to unshackle ourselves from these bourgeois rules that we have created amongst ourselves. Howard Tambo himself responded to this particular question about the forces who behave in this form. But I'm not going to quote him extensively in this regard. You will read that as I leave these notes for you. The last point, comrade, I want to raise is this dealing with this rolling back neoliberal right-wing tendency inside the movement and right-wing populism, demagogy, and ethno-chauvinism, which is now going to characterize even forces of this GNU. Now, in this regard, we have a task as a liberation force, how to deal with populist forces of this nature. First, our relationship with this government of national unity. The reality, comrades, is that the government has shifted rightward. Ngiyamuzwa SG bakakhuluma. It's a wish. That's a reality. It's a wish. The reality is that the government has shifted rightward. This is the contest. Now, we're going to fight defensive battles. Part of this defensive battle, basically, when you fight the government from right wing to be center right, you think you have won a battle. You have won a major victory. This is now the challenge of the working class, how to understand this fluidity. Umambana must understand this fluidity, where it is going. Because the right-wing forces are now in charge. They are cemented and they are augmenting the right-wing faction inside the liberation movement, the African National Congress. So the task of the working class has doubled, even tripled. So that means you guys, you comrades, have to go and fight very hard. This GNU is just a name. It's a center-right ANC DA coalition. That's where it's just in the name, this thing. That's where it's captured. So you have to deal with this thing, but because of the reason I'm jumping is because of the media and some of the things that cannot be said in their presence, because we are still part of the liberation movement. Comrade Mbalula is right. We are still part of the liberation movement. We'll go and sit and talk about some of these things on our own. The issue is what to do after we've warned ourselves about these things. What is to be done? First, build the front. Popular forces must expand on the ground. Let's have campaign to make sure that there are no reversals of democratic gains. Already, the fact that we are where we are, it's a major setback for the National Democratic Revolution. So let's go and fight hard, because what we failed to understand all these years, something very simple. You know, learning. It's in Mkhize ubaba womzabalazo wabasebenzi. Ikomanisi lithi, I quote, the transfer of state power from one class to another, that is another class, is the first, the principal, the basic sign of a revolution, both in the strictly scientific and in the practical political meaning of the term, close quote. In other words, one of the analyses that you need to undergo is whether the National Democratic Revolution has been a platform for mark timing, rhetoric mark timing, when there's never been a class transformation of society. Sidni ngamuzwa uLenin uthi akuzange kwaba ne-class change la ekhaya. That's why the forces of capital, the Oppenheimers, can decide one day when they realize that, oh, naba labantu sengathi bayafuna ukukuthatha umhlaba, but angeke yenzeke mabaphume. Because there's never been transfer of property relations in our country. And the land is the principal form of property relations. Nina manikhuluma ngomhlaba ngicabanga ukuthi into ePAC. Hey man. This is the fundamental task of the revolution, the transfer of land and its mineral resources, the water and the air that we breathe, the atmosphere above us. That's all about us. That's the core. That's the wealth of society. Now, Oxango had a class transfer of power from the bourgeoisie to the people. The people are still living in poverty. It is in this regard that we say to you, build classes, fronts, and collaborate with other like-minded individuals and organizations to transform and deepen transformation of society. Without doing that, my comrades will be in a deep, deep crisis as a liberation movement. We want to say that the Sacp will always be with you in this period of difficulties as the working class. Ourselves, we are not at the stage where we should be. To start with, we are very poor. Yes, we are very poor. Asina mali, siyasokola. Yes, ama-unions wethu akhona. Masiloko sisokola. Yabona ngihlangana no-Ivan Jim, ngithi awu Mhlekazi, njani unga-contest this time? Uthi hayi Mhlekazi wami, iyadura le, lama-elections ayadura. So I was very fair to me at I had to run my elections. So you could see ukuthi i-rights Mzansi izayithola imali yokudlula i-Communist Party. I'm a force of capital, the stooges of one party. But there individually, I'm not an MP, Zibi is an MP. It's as simple as that. And he's the leader of our Sacp in Parliament. Bengithi kuma comrade wethu we-secretariat ngithi amkelani isimo esikhona so that nizoba nama ideas on how to fight it. Those provinces that have managed to go above 50, we must do better so that we never go below 50. Those that have gone below 50, let's go and see how to improve them, to improve the situation so that we can go above and breathe life into the movement. I cannot leave this podium without saying, comrades, despite all this political school, it's a political school, in the context of the international, President, this is a political school. There are forces that have emerged, population, from the international side, from West Africa. These are our leaders. From Burkina Faso, for instance, we've got Comrade Traore. You have got Traore. We've got also the forces in Mali and in Niger. I'll be visiting these forces quite soon to reconnect with the African Revolution, because those forces are serious. No, those forces are serious in revolution. And I want to plead here from the political commission, maybe from the political school, because members of the NEC bakhona la. Is that masesicela lapho Comrade Khomutso? There will be some understanding. Good institution that has been established in the Sahel region, the Central West African region, by 3 leaders from these countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They have dispensed ECOWAS, that has become the entity of France. They've raised the banner against imperialism and against colonialism. They need our support. We need to link up with them so that we can also intensify both training, political training of their strategic cadres. Because at least when abasayibambile ngesibhamu. Yeah, nabayibambile bathatha ipower ngesibhamu. And bakhomba le ibhamu zabo against France, the greatest colonizer of the African continent. France colonized 28 African countries of 54 countries that we have. It's not a small thing. But those 3 guys, they've stood firm on the ground. I'll say in your international discussion, don't forget that region that is emerging and how this revolution can support that region, can link with that region, without forgetting other struggles. Whereas the struggles in the region, including the struggles in Swaziland, in the DRC, and everywhere else. But these forces have shown seriousness about the revolution. And they're clear that they're not going to allow a situation where the entire Europe is lit on the lithium of Niger, and yet the people of Niger live in poverty. So they're taking resources back to the hands of the masses. This is a serious revolution. Let's find a way to send even a message to these forces. Of course, it's not this bourgeois notion of coup d'etats. That's why in our Central Committee in February, we refused to condemn those coup d'etats. Because the government have got a script book. Any coup d'etat, you condemn it, even if it's on the hands of the people, on the side of the people. When they went to Niamey in Niger for this conference, when Traore arrived in Niger, there were hundreds of thousands of the masses receiving their leaders, marching with them, following them to say, Nilethi Nkululeko. Ile nto sifunayo ibuye back la country yethu. And I'm not saying that this thing will happen militarily. All I'm simply saying, those initiatives by military means on the African continent must be supported by now. And the same as I've known, and I like the material that you have in the context of support for Palestinian struggle. Basokola labantu bethu ePalestine. We're not serious even about dealing with this Israel. We need a mechanism. If we have the resources, Tina, we will go to court every single day to hold DICO accountable for soldiers, South African soldiers who are killing Palestinians within the Israeli Defense Force. They do it and come back here. We allow them. They massacre people. Let's not get weary of the support for the Palestinian struggle. Just last week, as they were withdrawing from one section of Khan Yunis in Gaza, they murdered 73 women and children in a shelter. They enjoy killing Palestinians, the Israelis. So it's important to express our clear solidarity in this regard, even in the context of the school that we're faced with. But otherwise, our struggle to fight and defeat austerity measures and to defeat this right-wing GNU establishment that has been set up with reactionary forces. I must tell you, there's nothing that shocked me. No president, my comrade, we have been sleeping all along. Good revolution. I felt I don't deserve to be a leader of this party. Yabona, the first negotiation, your Democratic Alliance, bafuna into bayibiza ukuthi is sealed agreement. But ANC, give us parliament to run, being the executive. But we want you to give our leader, Steenhuisen, a department to lead, Department of Trade and Industry and Competition. But this must be under sealed agreement. Suppose a good sealed agreement. But no, Agazoba accountable to anyone, not even to the president. Shukti Magayagu government, Magayagu, and I don't know if this thing can be implemented even in the context of this government of national unity. Yes. Because there was no reason why, when we have brought forces that could have shifted this thing around, we could have de-linked with capital as a revolution. We could have become independent. The moment had arrived for us to do so, and we rejected to do it. There was no reason why we were forced to go this route. There were options. But an impression was created that there are no options. It's not true. There were options. We put them on the table. Now, sealed agreement means Steenhuisen would have come as Minister of Trade and Industry to Cabinet, having finalized everything with his own team, including firing all the people there in that department and appointing his own people that only account to them. The Cabinet, because Cabinet is run on the principle of secrecy and cordiality. Now, Linda, I've never been to Parliament. She has been a minister. She knows this thing. Cordiality means that you cannot criticize your fellow minister, even in public. Yes, that's a system. And the whatever is discussed there is secret. If you breach that, you are removed. That's why when they take an oath, they don't take an oath to serve. They don't take an oath not to reveal secrets. What kind of an oath is that? I won't reveal secrets. Wait. Take an oath to serve the people. So, the negotiator is sealed agreement, Labantla. The thing that we failed to negotiate as the alliance all these years. Even good JZ, we said, JZ, give us one department. Let's run it the socialist way. This is the sealed agreement that they are talking about. Because we told about, no, when they realized that they can actually get 6 ministries, one sealed agreement for one minister was not good enough. They went for the bigger lot. They've got it. Now, raise your level of consciousness. We are happy with this school. All the best with the school. I'll send you the notes, sanitize, so that they are not Ninagu media. If you don't talk about the guidance meeting, you have no reason to publish me. Thank you very much. Amanda!
This is News Live SA.